Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has defended himself against accusations he's blocking a hostage deal with Hamas. This comes as protesters in Israel took to the streets for a second consecutive night. The latest mass demonstration sparked by the killing of 6 hostages in Gaza who were shot by their captors as Israeli forces approached. Protesters are demanding their government make a deal to free the captives still held by Hamas. Netanyahu apologised to the families of the 6 captives found dead, but he insisted he would press on with Israel's military campaign in Gaza and keep control of strategic territory. Our Middle East analyst Shani Rosanis has more on this. So Netanyahu says he's sorry, but it doesn't sound like he's budging on anything.
Well, correct. I mean, it did, seem like yesterday was him just trying to find more justifications and basically explain to the Israelis where he stands and why he stands where he is. And in that aspect, why he's refusing to go ahead with the deal as much as, the pressure on the street is going. Netanyahu is very clearly not aiming to wind this down or to go to any cessation of hostilities or the fire anytime soon. And he's trying to explain why that's the case. And so anybody who was hoping that the pressure of the public would be the one bringing Netanyahu to shift his position saw yesterday a very defiant prime minister trying to actually gain support for an action that is quite the opposite of what we see from the streets demand.
And one of those sticking points is this 14-kilometre buffer zone along the Egyptian-Gazan border, the Philadelphi corridor, which the Israelis want to hold on to in order to have some sort of control over the Gaza Strip. Right. Is this one of his aims or one of Israel's aims?
Well, that border we're talking about, the Philadelphia corridor, that's exactly the only way for Gaza outside, the only border that is not with Israel, but rather with Egypt. Netanyahu claims, and we saw a whole presentation last night, that this is the only way to make sure that Hamas does not regain power, get more ammunition through, smuggled through the border. But then a lot of, if you talk to the defense minister or any other leading members of the defense mechanism in Israel, they say this is not the case. Israel can always take Philadelphia corridor again if needed. And also they point to the fact that it's taken Israel about 8 months deep into the war in Gaza before it even reached that part. So they say, if this is such a vital part of the war, how come it wasn't one of our first targets? Sort of trying to talk about Netanyahu's attempt to use the Philadelphia corridor as an excuse not to go on with the deal, rather than actually a sticking point that is that meaningful. And this is the deep rift we are seeing between Netanyahu and, the more professional, leaders of the war in the military, and this deep rift is such that they cannot do anything that Netanyahu does not want to do. You see the public hearing them, and this is where you see the big distrust, on the streets. People do not trust Netanyahu because they hear so many other people say this does not have to be the case.
And time is running out for the remaining hostages. Just how desperate are those people on the streets, the Israelis, when it comes to getting some sort of deal, finishing this war, in comparison to the desperation among Palestinians to see some sort of end?
If you look at polling numbers, most of Israelis support a deal, including everything that it will take, like giving up the control of the Philadelphia corridor, like releasing lots of mass murderers, that have been, captured by Israel, kept in Israeli prisoners. Many do support that, but not Netanyahu's base. And this is exactly what we're seeing. He's catering to his base. He still has very strong support in his coalition, and that's what drives his decisions right now. As long as he doesn't have any threat from his coalition, I doubt we will see Netanyahu changing his stand on this. And if you talk about Palestinians, I also talk to colleagues and friends there, the desperation, the frustration, the sadness, it's endless. I was talking to some of them in the last days. They were hoping that what's happening on the streets in Israel will bring to a change, but obviously it's always hard to break their hearts saying we are not there yet. And when we're seeing the Americans focusing more and more on the campaign there, the election campaign of, Biden trying to support Harris, Gaza becomes a more minor topic for the world's arena for international attention, and they feel being left behind, maybe rightfully so. And unfortunately, we don't see where any of the sides, we need to keep in mind we also have Hamas here, and they don't seem to be too eager on going for a deal as well. The people, on both sides in Palestine and Israel might be somewhere else than where the leaders are, and we don't see any solution coming in the next, couple of months, weeks ahead of us, unfortunately.
It doesn't sound good at all. And I find it interesting that you say that Netanyahu is pandering to his base, but, is that going to secure him a future?
Well, it does. So far, it does. He doesn't have any threat to his reign. I mean, there's nothing right now that makes Netanyahu feel that he needs to go to election anytime before the set date in 3 years.
Yeah.
So far, he's holding strong.
Wow. Shani, thank you very much for the analysis. Interesting stuff.
You're welcome.